Kahiapo. I'm with the Department of Land and Natural Resources. I'm with the Aquatics Division. And our division is responsible for managing all of the resources in the aquatic resources. So that all includes our shoreline, our bottom fish, pelagic fishing, our coral reefs, and this is one of the publications that we make. We produce whenever there's a new rule, any kind of new rule that's being made. And it has it includes all of Hawaii's fishing rules and regulations, and yeah, so it has all the regulated species, and what, especially all along the Keaukaha shoreline, all the different
Marine life.
there's a marine life that is managed. So it's all the shoreline fishes, and all the different types of invertebrates that are regulated. Not everything in the ocean is regulated. And what usually is targeted by the fishing public, commercial, and that's how they have everything all set up. So we have regulated species, and we also manage the protected species, the marine turtles, monk seals.
So what is protected by the feds, registered
Yeah.
federal protection?
Yeah, because you have, and then they're also protected under the state too. So you have all the regulated species, and then you have all the different marine protected areas that we manage. And you look on page 28, and it has all the different regulated species, protected marine areas that we have that included on Hawaii Island. So for Hilo area, one of the biggest ones is on page 31. You have Hilo Harbor Fishery Management Area, and that's a place where fishing is allowed, but you have certain restrictions.
Really?
The biggest. That's from outside the break wall, the end of the break wall, and to where the old wine knuckle mill was. So from that point to the end of the break wall, everything inside up Wailuku River, and all through Wailoa River.
There's a restriction.
Yeah. It's a fishery management area where you have restricted fishing. The biggest restriction is prohibiting the use of gill nets. Yeah, the main nets, around nets.
Wow.
That they have. And you can't use any kind of traps or anything in there. And then you only allow each person can only have 2 fishing poles per person. All in the whole area. Yeah. So you have the Hilo Harbor Fishery Management Area. Then you also have in Wailoa River Fishery Management Area. That's a separate one. And so it shows it's our Wailoa River. From the mouth where Suisan store is. Yeah, everything inside there, up the Wailama Canal, and it's all the way up to the double span bridge that goes into Waikea Pond. And Waikea Pond is another separate.
That's this one.
Yeah, when you look on page 32, Waikea Pond is another. That place the restrictions is higher because you only allow one fishing pole in there. Because it's designated a public fishing area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so any kind of activity in there has to be related to fishing. So you cannot have your canoe or your kayak, and you cannot swim in there.
Recreational swimming.
Yeah, you can't go recreational swimming. The canoe clubs know that they can't go in there and practice.
They used to,
Yeah, they used to.
not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. Nothing. So we able to get a hold of the different of the canoe club association. Yeah. So these are all the areas that we like I know you. I was reading the emails that you looking at some sort of management, shoreline management that you starting discussion on.
Yes, can
Sure,
I elaborate, not unless you're done.
Oh no, I just giving the
Just went
overview.
over it, because
Yeah.
there will be questions
Yeah,
about
yeah.
what I'm familiar that DAR and DLNR works on the website.
Yeah.
Which is, our concern here in Kahiapo is the health and safety of the people
Yeah.
that have been participating in swimming or
Right.
fishing. And, pretty much getting sick.
Yeah.
So that was a concern of our community, so within the years have been gathered some data from families that were willing to give us some of this information. And some of the data that they did give was, where, the time and date of the place that they, where they participated in recreation, what they were doing, the activity, and then basically what kind of symptoms did they receive after swimming, and what made them feel like it was related to where they were swimming. So majority of the people that did share their information gave that information, and also the doctor that they saw and the diagnosis. So which was able to give us some kind of, I'm still collecting, because I have at least 10 families that were willing to give us this information and use for my data. And what Kahiapo Action Network has been doing is raising issues on the particular facilities that are in the area. And I know you've been following some of the things that I've been doing. So, finding the indicators of pollution that might be being emitted by some of these facilities of concern, because they're near us or on Hawaiian homelands. So what I did was, with the help of our community coming together like this, was strategize how we were going to authenticate some of the the claims that we're making. And it was suggested that you would have to prove some of these things, so that you can relate some of your claims of sicknesses to the pollution that you're thinking could be impacting this particular community. So it was fairly easy for us, because we grew up here and we know that a lot of these facilities were not here when our families were here since 1924, during the great the Hawaiian Commission Act, right? Kahiapo was the first Hawaiian homes here in the island, but second in the state, where 50% beneficiaries in, right? Like us. So what I did was choose a cumulative risk assessment system that was going to help me collect data. So I needed the baseline data to, after finding the facilities that I thought could be emitting and impacting. So throughout the years, was able to meet in our community, continue to educate some of our members about what I'm talking about, and managed to bring government officials to our community to discuss some of the data that I've collected, and discussing some, questions on some of the things that I did collect, and my findings. And this system actually helps me to be able to identify where there might be need for changes in policy and a need for government to remediate or to fix or to reduce, right? So reduction of emissions. And so, but this all takes negotiating with and working with agencies, community, moving everybody together. So Kahiapo Action Network is at the point where we've given a presentation at the county council. I'm not even sure if you've seen that. At the county council, it was being playing in the Leo, but it was a cumulative everything summary of the things that we had found, which showed a GIS mapping of spatial files that were collected by a student to help us put it on, on a paper and mapping, so that you can identify where these facilities are, where Hawaiian home communities, are in between all of this, and basically what we're gonna move on to remediate. So sewage was something pertinent. Because we have a lot of the spills, the signs everywhere. Managed to work with the department.
Because the public would call us, hey, what's up with the signs at Kahiapo with the Department of Health and so on. Usually it's something like, because there's protocol
that you have to go through?
No, that whoever did what spills, like
Yes.
any kind of pollution, then there's a protocol that all the agencies
Exactly.
have to call up.
Exactly.
You must be from the.
Well, I learned about what was the protocol. We were just learning whose jurisdiction it is when there is a spill, who's responsible for it, because we know that sewage is being emitted out here in front of our bay. And also knowledgeable about the fact that there's a lot of cracks, some things that needed to be repaired. So in 2017, we've got a lot of the repairs that was asked to, with the feds and enforcement having them, fix it. So the county did complete fixing some of the outfall pipes and managed to fix what they needed to fix. And then there's a few things that I know that needs to be done closer in the shoreline where the outfall goes out. They've got to November 1st, I think, the month of November to complete. So with all of this in place, we managed to give a list of things that concern us to the county council, and ask the mayor and the county council to help us with the issues, especially sewage, because that's their responsibility, waste. And I'm going to give you this because this is what was given to all of them. And this is the remedy that we asked them to do. So 2 major things that we were worried about that we narrowed down, low-hanging fruit, was evacuation plans, updates on the county evacuation plan, updated evacuation plan and disaster plans from these facilities that we've identified to be given to the first responders. So that was something that we wanted to work with. It's something that the local emergency planning committee, said we can start, outreaching to see if they can get these things to our first responders. That would be civil defense, that would be hazmat team, because a lot of these facilities do have to report to EPA their emissions, and because they have certain standards that they have to stay in, thresholds. So that was one, and we know that a lot of the things that they need to protect, prevention, meaning if there was in case a tsunami or a hurricane, would you be qualified and equipped and ready to prevent, major disasters? And so they working with us did come up with some points that they would need help with more funding to get more equipment, more training, because on the current emergency evacuation plan, they talk about explosions, tsunamis, fires, but it's related to, the explosions related to lava, the eruptions, and how, first responders would react to something that might happen that way. So after reading that, that's something that the county is requesting, community is requesting, for them to have these things updated, because there's only one way in and out of Keaukaha. And if, you know, anything did happen, presently, we're not adequately prepared for that. So that's something that they're working on.
Yeah.
And the other,
You've experienced that, the evacuation during.
yes,
July.
pretty, a lot.
See how.
Yes, you know, so what happens, experience getting everybody together, going up the Kalani on Ole,
Yeah.
1 year, we were all stuck with our things on, you know, because we were waiting for this gas storage companies and all the chemical companies in the harbor to move either their cars, their trucks, their, you know, move all the gas that was in the storage. That was priority, and we were all stuck here. And we had no way to get out through anywhere but the front. Yes.
Over the airport.
Yeah.
So that was before, and then when that happened, and thank goodness we didn't have a tsunami, they kind of worked out making sure that there's other exits for our people. So that didn't have to happen. So what they do now is they, at the evacuation, if they have to evacuate, they would close Kalani on Ole. Everybody has to truck out through the evacuation gates that they added here on the fence line of Keaukaha. So the exits during something like this, including those that have gas storage tanks that need to be trucked outside, have to go through our community and across the runway. So that's presently something that's in place, you know, for evacuation. So we had some suggestions as to how these facilities that we are worried about could contribute to helping first responders be prepared for this, and that would mean some kind of fund. So we're working on this language as to how this is going to work out to help our first responders be prepared by creating an asset fund. I'm working on the legislation write-up, and I've asked other people to help me with this. So, you know, just like what they have at Puna Geothermal, you know, something in that light. So that is something that we're hoping that we can present to the mayor, present to our county council, that they can do for us. That's something that's being in the works right now. Okay, so now the other thing that we're working on is sewage, and the concern that we have that David Ige, Governor Ige did sign a bill, right? That they are to close, not to close, but they are to, to convert cesspool to either a system or septic. Which would mean that it would compound, our thoughts that it would compound what's happening now. Because if the conversion is going to take place, where is the sewage going to go? It's going to go out Puipe. So right now, our community is looking to see if there's alternatives that more resourceful alternatives with the sewage. And so our ultimate goal is to one day not have sewage going out into the ocean. And that is being discussed now. How feasible that's going to be presently is going to take some additional discussion, you know, with all levels of government. So we've already discussed this with county. We've asked them what we think they could do for, you know, their responsibility with waste. Now I'm going to the state legislation to bring awareness to our issues, because there are some issues with regulatory, the regulatory responsibility. Making sure that the water quality samples are being done adequately, that they are funded so that we can have at least one more person on, you know, to help with the water quality sampling.
Yeah, I know, only get one guy.
We only have one person, so in order for us to,
Mukai, that's like the whole island.
Yeah. So, you know, he did come to our meetings. He did say that, you know, it would be helpful if he had someone else, because he's the only person. So we organized just recently a coalition of, or an alliance of people and organizations that are willing to be volunteers, to be trained to do our own quality sampling.
At least collect them.
Right, collect them, and so the university has offered their lab. Surfrider offered their expertise with test kits, and they are now actually coming together so that they can plan where they're going to be doing their testing. We already identified with the university some of the sites that we'll do, 8 sites in Hilo first, and then train other places for people that came to our meeting from Kona, from Puna. So that's where we're going with, water quality sampling, which is my kai. I think that's great, because that would help if the Department of Health will receive our data. That's great. It has to go through a quality assurance program. The Department of Health also did say that they're underfunded, and did let us know that if we could put pressure on legislation and the governor for additional, funding, they could probably be more equipped. Also available for, what do you call it? Consistent data, more accurate data, in places, because we're asking them to do, because they weren't really actually testing Puhi Bay. And so it was unclear at a certain, at a point as to whose responsibility it was to do Puhi Bay. So we found, after them coming to our meeting, that the county is responsible to only test the outfall area. The Department of Health is responsible for water quality along the shoreline, and that's Neil Mukai's job.
Yeah, so there's only so many sites out there.
So many sites, and so our question was, why wasn't Puhi Bay a regular site? And there were several reasons why. We were told by the Department of Health that they weren't regularly testing Puhi Bay. One, because it was designated a certain tier, tier 1, which is identified as tier 1 by a certain criteria. The amount of recreation that is being done there, economics in the area, population, so it was one reason. One was because they were short-handed, and the other was because that was just not a site that was requested to be tested for a while. But because of the concerns that we've been raising, Neil has been trying to come to try to test as much as he can. So,
you know what they test for? There's only certain things they
yes,
test for.
I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the other things that we're asking the Department of Health to do is to do more testing than just the fecal matter bacteria.
Yeah.
Because the EPA nationwide only does one testing, and that's for enterococci, which is something that they're mandated to do. All the regulators, like Department of Health, water quality branches, nationwide. So our concern is, not concern, our requested proposal for legislation this year, and this is what we want to do, is to ask if there is any way that we could, dialogue the thought about having other testings done. So Dr. Tracy Weinberg from the university did her study on MRSA and staph. And also agreed that they could do other testing, like she has done. But that's going to, at the university. But it would be great if we could have legislation and our governor support the idea of having other testings that could be done, because there are concerns with people swimming and getting sick. So that is something that we're taking to legislation. One of the items that we're taking to legislation is to ask how we can, and everybody's pointing up. County is saying, that's not our responsibility. If you want to change that, you got to go up. Up meaning you got to change the standards. So what does that mean?
Now's the time to write bills for the state legislature.
Yes, because
before January.
Before
And the
January.
other thing is, that Dr. Bennett on the Environmental Management Commission is saying that the type of testing Department of Health does doesn't really work for Hawaii, and he's working on another technique. But the university might be willing to get involved with that when they do their water testing. Or the state legislature might be interested in throwing some money that way, so. Yeah.
I'm meeting with Kai, our senator,
Right, Kahele?
Kai Kahele, and
Yeah.
and I'm bringing, he requests, because he wants to know what it is that, our concerns are, what it is that we're bringing to legislation this year. And then I'll go over that, so that you know what I'm doing.
Water testing, definitely.
Water testing, sewage and water is kind of a statewide issue, to have clean water, especially marine life. So the reason why I brought you here, John, is because I'm familiar with your working and collaborating with other communities that were concerned about the depletion of marine life.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm asking you here to see if that's something that you could help us with regarding the idea that Puhi Bay, I know Puhi Bay was more abundant, with fish and marine life, because I fished with my family as a subsistence gatherer. Napiayas were fishermen, and we ate from this whole shoreline. And we're never really worried about anything that would be impacting us like the sewage, because it was never here at that time. Everybody had cesspool. And the population growth, there's more people now than they ever had in Kyokaha before, especially Hilo as well.
You know how many people are hooked up to sewer in Kyoka?
Actually, I have a slide that, that we put together in our presentation that actually showed the whole Hilo area of people that needed to be eventually convert to a system. And I'm sure because they're so close to this system, it's going to be recommended that they hook up to the pipes. Which is why we're dialoguing now to legislation, that our community is concerned that it's going to impact and compound our issues even more out there. But presently the county is saying that they're within standards, which is something that we not quite sure is the truth, but this is what they can say, because their data shows that whenever they're testing, it shows that they're within standards. Now, how often do they test is a problem, for us, and the fact that they're just testing in one little area for the whole entire ocean. When there is a spill, especially if there's a spill that is with untreated fecal matter, what is the protocol for them to do this? So the first thing is for them to go and put the signs up to make sure that there's the community knows that there's a breakage and there might be some raw sewage in the water. Then the next thing they do is they do a testing. They send it to Oahu, and then they get guided as to what to do next. And then they tell them when to go back to the site to test again, the very same site. It has to be the same area. And so our concern was, so what is it that they do? They wait for it to dissipate into the ocean, and that's pretty much what they do, because they have a list of things why they say they're not worried about the levels of nutrients that could be contributed by fecal matter being pushed into the ocean, is because predation eats it, and that salt water kills the pathogens, so they have a list of things that the Department of Health say that they're not worried about any kind of fecal matter going in there. Well, I think there should be changes on that, because our people are getting sick. So we have to find a source. And in order for us to do that, we need more testing to be done. So in other words, if the fecal matter is contributing to high nitrates, nutrients, that is going to allow other bacteria to grow. They wouldn't know that unless they had the Department of Health testing. So that is the concern about what we're doing right now. But the reason I'm asking you, is there a possibility that we could consider Puhi Bay an area of concern where depletion of our fish was not only because it was outfished, but because of the high nutrients that could have changed the ecosystem, and it would allow us to do an epizoological study in the ocean that could help us replenish the marine life and the coral that we believe were impacted by several different indicators. One being the sewage, compounded throughout, decades of emission, and emissions that could have been partially treated, that could add to the high bleaching of coral bleaching. And if that's a possibility, we would like to see if there's a way that we could template what you did with the west side,
or with
as a marine reserve.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility to make from A to B a replenishment reserve?
Any type of fishery management area that is being developed, it all starts with the community, and it's getting the community together and finding out what they want. Yeah, and that's where it starts. And for the Tri-Way, it all started with the families from that.
The community.
Yeah,
Sure.
so they've seen the changes, how the different changes to the area changed all the fishing population. When the Queen Cake came in, it was easier for people to get access to the shoreline. And when the resorts came in, they had more, and they required public access. So now people could just drive right up to the beach and just gather from there. But that's where it starts. It starts with just taking your concern to different clubs or community association. You familiar with what the Lily Community Association proposed?
Years ago.
Yeah, years ago.
I was
Yeah.
familiar with that particular.
They wanted to make a marine life conservation.
Right, at Richardson's.
Yeah, Richardson.
Yes.
I think they wanted to from Richardson's all the way to Carlsmith. But they opened it up to discussion with everybody. Yeah.
Was sewage on the west side ever a concern for the depletion?
What the concern they had was about the golf courses.
The runoffs?
Yeah, they had about the golf courses. So the guys who run the golf course, they're the ones who came up, who spoke to the families, and they spoke at the other meetings about how they use pesticides and use fertilizer.
So was that part of, what was that, pesticides, whatever treatment they had for golf courses, so the runoffs into the ocean, was also an indicator of depletion?
They couldn't trace that. They couldn't connect that.
So I see, so that would be all in the
Yeah,
package
because
of,
they gathered all I guess their water samples and stuff like that all over time, and then they presented it about just showing how everything was within standards.
probably because they don't test for water quality, other than enterococci, right? So if there were any pesticides that were being emitted, if there was any chemicals going in there, the Department of Health does not test for that. Right?
Yeah.
So in our case over here, we're seeing that there could be a reason why a lot of our fish is not abundant like it was 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And could it be an indicator that oil spills, sewage, over actually is more prioritized, more looked at as priority over fishing, So if you could, because I know that could you work with us to direct us as to how we could do this? Because we have the buy-in with the Pacific Aquaculture,
Yeah.
you know, what do you call it?
Yeah,
Center here
yeah,
of coastal resources. Maria Haas, who I didn't actually bring her here because I wanted to talk to you first, and then the next meeting we can bring everybody together. But I have been meeting with her in regards to some of the projects that she's doing to help Oahu. And what was kind of neat to me was that they're growing, or they're raising oysters here in Hilo at her, and projects to take to other places that they felt was, where once, with pearl beds, oyster beds, no longer there because of pollution. So she's working with water keepers, she's working with others that are
You heard
replenished.
about how they're using oysters to help clean
Yes,
the shoreline?
exactly.
Yeah.
So working with DAR, and in partnership in our communities to see if we could make this Puhibe, a template for a replenishment program. We have Coral Reef Alliance, we have the university that would be willing to do a baseline data collection, by doing a number count. And we've been discussing that with the Marine Options Program. Matt
What is
Connell.
that?
Matt Connolly, right, Connolly. And we have Dr. Burns, I guess he's the one that actually did some coral reef studies prior.
Yeah.
So what we're doing right now is collecting a lot of the coral reef studies that may have been available in the past, but not consistently done because they were projects funded. So with this collaboration of having everybody come together for replenishment, we'd like to begin that.
Yeah.
And
You ever talk to the guy, Bill
Walsh?
No, Bill DeRoy?
No, I haven't.
He's with Nine.
Oh,
And
is he
he's-
the one that
Yeah,
goes out in the
and
front?
that's the one he always goes out Cooley Bay.
Right,
And he does dives, and he's been there for years and stuff like that.
exactly.
He would be able to give some good information on the changes that he's seen
Within the years. That'd be great. I'll go see him because
Yeah,
he's been out there and the university has been out there
yeah,
too.
and the university.
Not as consistent as he has.
Yeah,
which is great.
That's why he's out there.
And working with Coral Reef Alliance, because they worked in projects with TNC and also
Yeah.
Coral Reef Alliance and Foucault, right,
Right,
Pebble
right,
Beach
right.
Association. So very similar idea of their concerns for sewage.
Yeah.
Only theirs
Right
is,
now, pool core is, the community trying to get together and trying to figure out what type of treatment, what kind of,
the conversion or how they're going to be,
facility that,
yes,
so the community.
is active in that,
Yeah.
which is
So do
great.
you
So
work on water quality or mostly fishing
No,
regulations?
no,
or-
we manage all the critters in the aquatic resources.
So if
in
you
the
saw a whole
ocean.
pile of fish dying off and it was suspected from pollution, you would get involved in that?
Yeah, we would document, just like how they had the molasses spill, our Honolulu office, they were.
Oh,
they
so
were
you
there.
would document?
Yeah,
how
we
the
would,
fish-
we would document all the fish,
Oh,
but at
that's
least
wonderful.
doing the water testing, we don't do the water testing.
Oh, we just look at the marine.
Yeah,
life
we
and
would,
what's happening
if
to it.
we're able to get,
Marine
get the
health.
fish, like if there's a big fish scale,
Yeah,
if you guys able to see that, and if you see some of the fish that's still wiggling, that's the fish that you wanna take and ice them down. And that can be sent to a lab, there's a place that they send them in Honolulu, and they can do a toxicology on.
you're kidding me.
Yeah,
Okay, because there were some fishermen, here that were concerned. They sent me pictures, I still have it.
yeah.
And these are fish that, they catch down at Richardson's, 4 miles. I think he was at 4 miles. And he saw some things that were on his fish, and they looked like some sort of, the parasite that
Okay.
was either on the, eye or whatever, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wouldn't know, who to call if there was a concern in the fish.
But the thing is, the fish gotta be still alive.
Immediately,
Yeah, it's still gotta be, it's still moving. And if it's dead, and then,
You have to send it to Honolulu and keep it alive till then?
no, you don't have to keep it live, you just gotta keep it iced
Oh,
down.
just keep it from
Yeah,
rotting.
yeah,
Oh.
so, and you don't wanna freeze it, you just wanna keep it iced
Oh.
down. And
Then
then,
how about if there's a gradual die off or change over the course of 10, 20 years? You guys track that? Nobody tracks that?
of the fish, big fish scales you talking about? Or
No,
just-
I'm talking about, like,
Oh, less-
when she
less-
was young, there's fish all over the place.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Now there's not, but you guys don't track that?
No.
Anybody track that? Only the people that kind of see it, like Bill DeRoy, or the people that fish all the time or swim all the time.
Yeah, because there's so much stuff that so many different factors involved with when you see the population go down. Yeah.
Crime, and well, we did it.
so pollution isn't something that Department of Aquatic Resources really actually takes into consideration unless you have the proof that this particular pollution is impacting a specific marine species.
Yeah, no, because what we do, we just monitor the fish populations. There's certain area right now for our monitoring program, we have all these management areas
Yeah.
that we constantly around twice a year we do population counts on fish, on invertebrates, coral growth, and yeah, just looking around for right now the big thing is coral bleaching.
So you have that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you only do it if it's a management area.
Oh, well, we do it on the management area, and then we have some control areas. And it's just these same areas
Oh, I
that
see.
we always do it.
So how do you become a management area?
Exactly.
A management area, all depends. See, we have different types of marine management areas. The management area of the highest protection, they're called marine life conservation districts.
Yeah.
And here in East Hawaii, we only have one, and that's down at Kapoho Vacation Land,
Mhm.
at the Waipai
Yeah.
type.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a no-take area,
Right.
yeah. And we have others, Kealakekua Bay, Lapakahi State Park, we have Old Kona Airport, let's see, we have Wailea Bay out by Pu'oko, by Hapuna. So you have, so those marine life conservation districts, they're able to be considered for that type of protection. The area has to meet certain criteria. So it has to have diversity of fish population, and have diversity of corals, invertebrates, and gotta have some type of maybe some kind of historical or some kind of geological feature that makes us the place special. Like Hanamo Bay, we got that bay inside there.
So marine
Yeah,
conservation district is the most stringent, and
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
other
And then you have
here.
fishery management area, like the one we have in Hilo.
Yeah.
And it allows fishing with certain restrictions. And then we have the fishery replenishment areas. That's all the areas along West Hawaii where aquarium fishing, collecting is prohibited. So that's why they call it fishery replenishment areas. And then you have fishery, a public fishing area, and that's at Waikia. We have it right there. catfish
So people
pond.
can fish there as long as they follow the rules.
Yes, and in that area, the area is just designated, the only type of activity they can do there is active fishing.
Great, so
Yeah.
how can Kyokaha, who, we start here, because we can from A to B, be able to quantify data, for us to be able to fit the criteria of a replenishment
Yeah.
area. Do you have all that criteria? I mean, is that information available for us to investigate?
Yeah, for MLCD, but it's, but for what the community presents to DNR, because it's.
We have to go to
it's-
DNR?
No, it's the community that makes the decision first,
Right,
what you guys want. Like we can, like how we work with Kaupulehu is that we're able to steer you guys in the right direction, what you guys need to do.
so community meaning Hilo
Or
an organization
okay, yeah. So it
or
starts.
an
it start-
association?
No, at first it starts in the community, like Kaupulehu, it started with the families. So you started in the garage, started.
Right, so if I
and
put,
then they come together, and then from there, they reach out to the surrounding,
neighboring communities
neighboring
and
communities.
organizations, because that's the collaboration, identifying stakeholders that would be buy into your idea of
Yeah,
a
yeah,
replenishment, right?
Yeah,
So from what you know about this area, where people are saying the fish are declining, less variety in the world, what kind of area? Would it be that conservation? Would it be replenishment? What kind of?
I think would be more of a fishery management area that would be.
That would be looking, that would fit what we're talking about.
Fit what you guys.
So it'd be like no commercial fishing and then restricted personal fishing?
Oh yeah, then that's what the community.
If the community wanted it.
What the community.
So, and this is a kind of gray area as to who's the community that participates in Puhi Bay.
Yeah,
Jurisdiction of the shoreline access, right here in front of Puhi Bay, is Department of Hawaiian Homelands.
yeah.
However, the activities and public access for other people that participate in coming into Puhi Bay, they would have to go and access it, not through Hawaiian Homes. Right now, they have some issues on people commercializing and having access through Department of Hawaiian Homelands in Puhi Bay. But they have abilities to get into the water for recreational snorkeling or scuba diving. That's a concern right now in our community for people, because we can't participate in commercial activity and having access through this area. Nobody's allowed to go and, sell or, in that area.
It's like
Then-
tours or is
Right,
it-
so right now we have
Commercial
tours,
fishing?
like the scuba aquatics,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
commercial.
Yeah.
So they are allowed to go through getting a permit through county,
Through county.
to the county to go and you have access to their public parks, right? Like 4 miles, and they close it. Puhi Bay is unique because the access to get into Puhi Bay is the jurisdiction of Department of Hawaiian Homelands.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, the way things are. So, our committee, supposedly, for now it's a committee until I make it a nonprofit, where it's totally an autonomous organization, which I think eventually we're gonna have to do. But it's, we report to the Kyokaha Association, to Patrick Kahawaiola'a, everything that we do. We're as transparent as can be.
Okay.
You could, be also on our Hawaiian Community Health Task Force, because this is where we put all the information about our initiatives,
Yeah. He sends me all the
the information.
publications.
Yeah, that's great. So, we are not, separate from what, this community is asking for. We've already been working on issues, on this health and safety issue for almost 5 years. So what we're moving on now is to see if there's a way that we can start replenishing our marine life. Because I know that, working with Hannah Springer, I'm gonna say hi, Hannah Springer, the idea of years that it took them to organize, just to get where they got.
So if the community says we want a fish management area, then DLNR actually declares it an official management area?
It goes through all these different steps.
Yeah.
So the community gets together. This is where it takes the longest.
Right.
Because you getting all the different ideas and getting everybody to agree, give and take. And,
Right.
You guys gotta find out where's the boundaries. What the
Right.
boundaries
Right.
you
You're
guys.
supposed the community takes time, gets it all
Yeah,
together,
yeah.
but it
Right.
comes under
Yeah,
DLNR.
yeah.
Eventually, it would go on the agenda for the Board of Land and Natural Resources,
Yeah,
they would
yeah,
say
yeah.
yes or no.
Yeah.
After.
After the whole community, but it starts first with just organizing and discussing.
So what is what is DLNR's involvement with that? Do they come to the meetings?
Oh, yeah,
Then
yeah.
They wait till the community pretty much has it.
Well, a lot,
Together what they want,
and then you guys, they would present it to the DLR representatives, what you guys proposing, and then afterwards it'll go to our program managers, and they would look at it and see how it is, it would go through all the different divisions, enforcement, and then it has to go to the Attorney General's office. They would look at the wording, see how everything is up, is okay, and nobody's rights being violated.
Did OHA participate in that process?
Yeah.
Office of Hawaiian Affairs.
Yeah.
Any other organizations like the Hawaiian Civic Club?
Oh, yeah.
Because they were participants in the decision of this whole process for Kahiapo.
Yeah.
So
the
having
Kona Hawaiian Civic Club, they also had representatives of fishermen that fish that area. So that the fishermen could go to their constituents and let them know, this is what this community is planning, and get the fishermen's input on that. Yeah, and these are all the different groups that you have to bring in.
So it'll be a matter of getting the community together, have some meetings, saying these are the possibilities for how to protect the fish, which one you guys support, and then there'll be, the tour groups may say, don't do that, you're gonna put us out of business, and all that kind of stuff. So you probably, get people together and come up with a proposal, if we want this kind of area, we want these kind of restrictions.
Right.
Gotta be writing it out, and so maybe I could meet with Hannah Springer and KMLC to see how they did that.
And another, especially when it affects fishing, is you gotta get the people who actually deal with fishermen. Tokunaga, Jehara, they're the ones who supply the fishermen, all those guys,
So, John, I have a question. In the process, I'm familiar with this because we were part of the process, and that was, you did have some opposition with fishermen saying that, with a different point of view. And so with the hearings that you've had, with the public, inputs you've had, with just the fishing community, there was some opposition. So how did the Department of Hawaiian the Department of Land and Natural Resources deal with that before they made a decision to propose? Because as we gather, stakeholders
Yeah,
to help
yeah.
us with this issue, because it's a good thing.
Mhm.
Right now, we know that our marine life has suffered, our
Yeah.
coral reefs has suffered. We've got the buy-in with the university wanting to help us get
Yeah,
a
yeah,
data
yeah.
baseline. We could use that as a beginning, to propose. It does, like I mentioned, you do counts after it's designated by the state and with all the, departments, that it now is deemed a replenishment area, a fishing area.
Yeah.
That's when DLNR comes to continue doing the count, or did you participate
Or,
in the beginning count as well?
oh yeah, what for, talking about Kaukulehu,
Mhm.
was, well, DLNR, they have areas that they always monitor, so that was
Oh, I see.
in the Kaukulehu. So Kaukulehu was already designated a fishery replenishment area.
Okay,
Yeah, so,
that's when,
so that area is always, always conducting,
has to,
fish counts, especially for aquarium fish and everything else that they monitor there. And so for the Kahiapo shoreline, that's when we gotta do a new baseline study. The only areas that we're monitoring now is Richardson's. Only at Richardson. We have sites, maybe over 20 years.
what is, because it's not a designated
Yeah, it's
area,
not,
so.
but it's a control area, because we monitor that area and compare it to the places that is protected. So we can see the difference, so, but we do have data.
Oh,
On-
so how's the
on-
data
Wow.
on Richardson's? Is
Yeah.
there a decline in fish, any?
Well, the thing with fish population, I don't know right now, but it fluctuates.
Yeah,
Yeah, it always fluctuates, and even there, during the coral bleaching, they, had coral bleaching there too.
Yeah.
But, you're familiar with Pat, she just volunteers, and she takes her, on her own, she does fish counts,
Was she,
yeah.
was she working with the parks before?
Well, no, she's just,
Volunteering.
She volunteers, with the Marine Mammal Response, Response Network, and she was doing, but she's there like every week
Oh.
doing.
One of the things that we know about Richardson is that they are actually high in bacteria for enterococci.
Yeah.
It's a
yeah.
site that we have multiple reports of people receiving staph and MRSA. And
Olikaka.
and that whole, actually, the whole shoreline, however, it is, she has to go.
Oh, okay.
So, however, it is actually.
Sorry, I have to go.
No, she
Okay.
has
Nice
to, no
meeting
worries.
you.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's with the Sierra.
Take care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice seeing you yesterday. Seeing you yesterday.
So, there is a problem, enterococci, high fecal readings in Richardson. So does that have any impact with your studies?
Well, for us, we right now we don't connect it. But we have data on the fish counts. So if anything like that will occur.
I see, so
Yeah.
there is really no data
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you're responsible for looking at,
Yeah.
to see if there's any
Anything,
connection
any
to the
connection to it.
sewage,
No, yeah, we
and
just,
part of the
yeah.
depletion
Yeah, we just,
possible. Count.
during these certain times, we always go back and monitor these things. So we have data on the fish count.
So, on just the fish counts though,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not, do you have an indication of reports saying that there might be, it varies, you said, right?
Oh, yeah, we have reports on fish populations in that area.
That'd be great, because if that's the only area right now that you have data on, is it public access? Can we get some of this data from,
Yeah.
you know, from DLNR? You know, is it on your DLNR site?
Right now, yeah, but there's a report
That goes
that
in,
there's an annual report that, that goes to the chairperson on all the survey areas.
so would it be on the site
Yeah,
for
no,
public
I
to,
don't, yeah, I'm
for
not
the
sure.
public to receive?
Yeah, I know, it's all public.
It is?
It's all public.
Right, so it is on the website?
Yeah, I don't know if it's on the website,
Oh, I see.
but I know it's public information.
Is there, you know, that would be
given
great,
out.
because that's what I'm doing right now,
Yeah.
is collecting data.
Oh,
So
okay.
is there a way that I could get,
Yeah,
you know,
I will-
find some,
I can
you know,
find
the
out
data
about
that's already available? And the university has some historical data as
that.
well.
Yeah,
'cause
and
they-
even you.
Right, so
Because they have this, yeah, they've been doing that for a long
Right.
time too.
so I think they're offering, Tracy, Maria,
Yeah,
says they have data that they would allow me to start collecting, so that we could have a library of historical data.
yeah,
And so that we can see if there's a trend, if there's, you know, anything that we could look at. We're not experts, but we have the help of the university to help us, you know, with the readings of all this collection. At least we can identify that on spatial, if there's any spatial files that, you know, it can be put by identifying a GIS point, or, you know, the lat long readings, and then we can start our data. So I think any suggestions, you know, I mean, you gave us a lot of
Yeah,
suggestions,
yeah,
because
but
that's a lot of work, but
yeah.
I don't mind doing it, because
Yeah.
it's not available.
But at least before any type of management area is developed, you know, you can get some data. Right
Some
now.
data, I think that's important to get,
Yeah.
you know, baseline data. The University Marine Option Program was also gonna implement this in their,
Yeah, because
in their
they
schooling.
get stuff for years.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the Marine Options Program wanted to start something now to see if they could get the students and integrate that into their, into the curriculum, to see if they could offer this as some, you know, a project to do at Puhi Bay, where they could get a baseline data on fish count. So, I just wanted to know how the DLNR, you know, because this is where I'm looking at, to be able to create this place. This is an idea, to have this a replenishment area, and what that entiles. That way, I can start organizing data, coming up with a plan, very similar to what Kahiapo did, you know, so, you know, instead of reinventing the wheel, we have a template to follow. And so I would meet with, you know, Hannah Springer to figure out, you know, if this is something feasible that our community could take on with the collaborated effort and with, you know, university. And see if that's something they'd like to take on. Also the Coral Reef Alliance, also Dr. Burns, if you'd like to take on the coral bleaching issue. So this is something that the university has offered us,
Oh, okay.
you know, to see if that's something that Puhi Bay we could start with.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know what it would take for it to become eventually, you know, a replenishment area that DLNR would be able to monitor. And that was the reason why I asked you to call.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, would you be willing to attend some of the meetings that, you know, we gather when the time comes that we need to, you know, some questions, or if I can come to you
Oh, yeah.
in your
Oh,
office
I
to
think
see if there's any other additional data?
Yeah,
you
because that was part of what we do. We go to the community meetings and you know, at least do some technical.
And so what we're here, I'm gonna present to Kilkaha Association. I'm gonna also present it down to probably Lele'iwi, because I know they have their own association.
Yeah.
You know, so, that, also the harbor.
I know
also-
they were meeting what, the third Monday or.
Right, I'm gonna
Yeah.
see, you know, other organizations, you know, in Keaukaha that
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
willing to buy into the idea of replenishment. And which I think everybody's concerned right now in Keaukaha about the water. That is a given, you know, that I have enough evidence and enough reports and enough people discussing this issue and dialoguing with me the importance of water quality. We have our people that have seen the decline in the fish and the species that are no longer available. I'm not sure. I used to go to places that had limu ele and I don't see
Oh,
that
yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
You know, so why that is something that has never been checked. Why there's no limu ele, why before when we could just go out there, kaku was right there. We used to go catch kaku for bait right out in front of Hui Bay. My father had places where he could go for menpachi, for kole, that is not available anymore. And how we gauge that is what is available and not available to eat anymore. So this is something that we want to tackle. This is, I think, very important. You know, now that we have water quality issues up and running, this is something, the reason why, you know, I wanted to talk to you about this. And then present it and organize everybody coming together and also presenting it to Keaukaha Association, to our community.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, yeah.
So the
yeah.
first thing I think I wanted to see is if who do I see to gather the data that
Oh,
we
yeah,
might have?
I'll go, work on that for you.
That'd be great, thank you.
Yeah, I go look.
And if I have any questions in between from now and, until we start organizing with this, I know it's a huge project. That's okay, it's
Yeah.
important.
See,
We
right
start.
now, can at least get
Start with the data.
some of the data that's available
Right.
right now, and, you know, good for, and that can be presented to the different groups of
Right.
what's there.
One of the first things I wanted to do to, well, not only yours, not the first, but simultaneously was to encourage the university to see if they could get or the state, Clean Water Branch, to do an epizoological study in the marine life out of here at Hui Bay. You know, because then we can start quantifying some of the risks, you know, the impacts, you know, just all of this data being put together. You are at the meeting that is going to begin more.
Oh, yeah.
This is the very beginning. You were very important at this meeting.
Yeah, because that's, in the beginning, that's the hardest.
It's the beginning.
That's the beginning part is getting,
So you are
yeah.
part of our embryonic stage of getting things together. So great. Any more questions for me?
No.
Are you familiar with, did you need more information about how we organize Keaukaha Action Network? I mean, because there are other issues that concern our community, and that would be in air quality. We are meeting with Kahiapo.
Oh, okay.
And I would like to invite you.
Oh, okay.
It's gonna
yeah.
be with, well, if you can, you know, we'll officially invite you. OHA's gonna do that for me. To officially invite those people that could help us start talking about our issues. And I've made more pertinent the issues, although it's kind of big, water quality.
Oh, yeah.
So that is some legislation that we're bringing up to state legislation. So we're trying to get these legislative ideas put together in verbiage to submit to by October, November. It's already being worked on, you know, to get to, if it's going to be heard or reviewed by the governor, it's got to be done before.
Oh, okay.
Yes?
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, I hope
Yeah.
it's on
No, that's
October.
good.
See, you're
October.
October 6th. So if you are available, go check.
Well, that's a
I will
Friday.
send it. If you can, you cannot, just let me
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
RSVP and say that you're going to be there. It's just a group of Department of Environmental Manager, our state legislators, our county council legislators. We have invited OHA compliance, the compliance group, Earth Justice, you know,
Yeah, so-
all of the people that were involved with working with me on this very issue.
Okay, so that's Friday, huh? Is that the 6th, yeah?
Hold on for a second. Let me look, John. And then we will end this meeting now.
Okay.
Let me say, this is great.
Yeah,
It's the
so
beginning.
I know.
Was that something that you want to leave, or you just maybe give a few?
Oh, no, yeah, if you can pass them out.
Can I?
Yeah,
I would love to.
Okay.
These are great, you get all
These
kinds
are
of
great,
information.
you know, because.
Yeah,
Hold on for a second, let me go look at this date. And so October 6th is a Friday.
Yeah,
You're right, which is not too far away from now.
yeah. Come. Oh, just go, I know. Okay.
Between 10 and 12.
10 and 12, yeah.
Block it off, and then we'll send, OHA's gonna be sending you an invitation.
Okay,
We're
okay.
hoping to get Mayor Kim. You would be a representative of the state.
Yeah, I could, see, I can represent, because I'm with Aquatics, but I also involved with enforcement, so
Yes.
because all what I'm doing here, I'm gonna pass on to our biologist in Hilo and the supervisor for
So what you met with
enforcement.
us today
Yeah,
would
yeah.
go to them, you
Yeah,
will
yeah,
report, that's
so,
great.
so it's just letting them know.
Who's your,
Oh, James Weller,
James Weller
Yeah,
is
yeah. Is
the,
the
your
yeah, is the
Department of
is
Supervisor.
the supervisor for enforcement for the
Great.
game wardens. Yeah, 'cause
I'm
this
excited.
this all, because I don't keep all of them connected with what's, because it's good for us to keep, to stay connected with the communities that we serve.
You know, it's not only a Keaukaha Hawaiian Homes issue, and the
Yeah.
reason why I'm really starting it here is because this is where I live,
Yeah,
and this is my family. But it also is, you know, with the idea of choosing this cumulative risk assessment, it was easier to quantify data with, with a group of, our group of people.
yeah.
But,
Okay.
we all know that emissions and pollution isn't race-based, and that it also includes other communities, that participate in the ocean and that have a concern. So we do have a lot of people concerned, besides, the people that live in Keaukaha, about, because, where are the beaches that our people in Kilo go?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Keaukaha. So if we've got families that are no longer trusting to even take their children down there because they, fear of getting sick, then we need to start doing something.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. All right.
Wow.
All right.
Okay.
We're getting hammered.
A little devil.
All right.
All right.